Nice to meet you, Simo. Call me Mick. Mick.
When Crocodile Dundee hit theaters in 1986, it didn't just entertain, it redefined pop culture. The rugged Outback, the swagger, and that unforgettable grin turned a humble bushman into a global legend. Yet behind the effortless charm were untold dangers, strange coincidences, and choices that nearly doomed the film before it began. Stay with us, because by the end, you'll learn about the hidden version of Crocodile Dundee that almost never saw the light of day. Before Paul Hogan became the face of the Outback, there was Rod Ansell, a real-life bushman whose survival story gripped Australia. After being stranded for months in the wilderness, he drank cow's blood, lived off frogs, and fought crocodiles. His quiet charisma and wild independence became the mold for Mick Dundee, but Ansell's real story ended in tragedy, killed during a drug-fueled police standoff. The movie immortalized his legend, but his fall gave Dundee's myth an eerie undertone. And here's the twist. Hogan never publicly admitted the link, but clues in the script tell another story entirely. Paul Hogan was no Hollywood insider. He was a bridge painter turned comedian who refused to let anyone else define his story. When studios dismissed Crocodile Dundee as too Australian to sell overseas, Hogan doubled down and funded it himself. He co-wrote, co-produced, and even helped cast it, treating the movie like a survival mission. The risk worked. His Bushman in the City became a worldwide phenomenon. Yet fame brought a different kind of danger: sudden wealth, relentless media scrutiny, and pressure to deliver again. Hogan had built an empire on instinct, but not even he was ready for how big it would get, or how quickly it could unravel. At its first American test screening, several studio executives didn't even finish the film. They couldn't understand the Aussie slang, hated the pacing, and claimed Hogan's accent was too thick for US audiences. One even suggested dubbing his voice. Hogan refused. Instead, his team made a trimmed-down international version while keeping the film's Aussie soul intact. That act of defiance turned a local comedy into a $300 million global hit. Ironically, those same executives later fought over distribution rights. They'd walked away from a goldmine, one that proved authenticity always beats formula. But one quiet decision during that edit shaped how the world first saw Dundee forever. The spark for Crocodile Dundee didn't come from the Outback, it came from a Manhattan sidewalk. During a trip to New York in the early 80s, Paul Hogan saw a group of businessmen mocking a homeless man. The cruelty stunned him. He wondered how a man from the wild, someone untouched by city cynicism, would react. That thought became the film's heartbeat, kindness clashing with chaos. It wasn't about jokes, it was about innocence meeting the modern world. That one scene inspired everything that followed, including the ending that still brings audiences to tears. But that moment on the sidewalk? Hogan never forgot it, and it changed how he saw humanity forever. In Australia, Crocodile Dundee was instantly recognizable. But when the title reached American audiences, confusion erupted. Was it a nature documentary, a reptile adventure, a sports film? To clarify, the studio added quotation marks, Crocodile Dundee, to show it was a nickname, not a species. That tiny punctuation choice changed the film's fate, giving it an identity that popped on posters and marquees. Soon, Crocodile Dundee became a brand, not just a movie. And the irony, those quotation marks made Mick sound even more mythical. Half man, half legend. The simplest tweak in Hollywood history created one of cinema's most iconic titles. The crew thought the danger was fake until it wasn't. While filming near a remote watering hole in the Northern Territory, a real crocodile wandered onto the set before sunrise, drawn by leftover food scraps. Crew members froze as the reptile hissed and slid back into the water. It was a reminder, in the Outback, you're never the biggest predator around. Filming halted for a day, and armed wildlife spotters were added to every shoot. That morning's chaos left everyone shaken, but it also gave Hogan the perfect story to tell on talk shows. After all, not every actor can say they almost got eaten by their own movie's star. Shooting Crocodile Dundee was tough enough, but nature wasn't about to go easy on the crew. During one dusty morning setup, a camera assistant screamed he'd been bitten by a venomous snake hiding in the tall grass. The on-set medics sprang into action, administering anti-venom and radioing for emergency extraction. But after that day, every step off the path was taken with fear and respect. The Outback wasn't just a backdrop, it was a living, breathing reminder that the wilderness doesn't care about call sheets or movie stars. For Linda Kozlowski, the American newcomer playing Sue Charlton, the Outback shoot was a rude awakening. Her lodging was a corrugated tin hut with no electricity, plumbing, or insulation, just a mattress, bugs, and endless noise. But instead of complaining, Kozlowski embraced it. That exhaustion and discomfort seeped into her performance, giving her scenes a raw, unfiltered edge. She wasn't pretending to be overwhelmed by the Outback. She truly was. That authenticity became part of the film's magic. Little did she know, those long, uncomfortable nights in the red dust would soon rewrite both her career and her personal life. Mick Dundee's crocodile skin hat became an instant icon, but for Hogan, it wasn't costume design. It was history. He'd worn that very hat for years, beaten, bent, and soaked by real Outback sun. The costume team begged him to replace it with a cleaner version for continuity, but Hogan refused. The hat's wear told its story. Every crease was a mile traveled. Eventually, replicas were handmade to match it down to the scuff. Yet Hogan still wore the real one off camera, saying, "That hat's not part of Dundee, it is Dundee." The irony, that weathered hat later sold for more than most actors' cars. That mesmerizing moment when Mick Dundee freezes a water buffalo with a single gesture nearly never made it to screen. The animal refused to cooperate, ignoring handlers, wandering off, and even charging once. After hours of failed takes, the crew used a mild tranquilizer and caught a few seconds of calm. Hogan improvised, holding his hand steady, eyes fixed, until the buffalo froze just long enough. That unplanned magic became one of the most iconic moments in the film, and to this day, fans still ask Hogan if he actually hypnotized the beast. "That's not a knife. That's a knife." The line that launched 1,000 memes wasn't scripted. Paul Hogan thought the original line felt flat, so he ad-libbed it during filming. The cast broke into laughter, but the director knew it was gold. That off-the-cuff moment became a global catchphrase, quoted for decades across movies, TV, and late-night sketches. It was lightning in a bottle, the perfect mix of timing, tone, and swagger. The scene proved Hogan's intuition was sharper than any script. What no one expected, that one line would outlive every sequel that followed. During on-location shoots in New York, locals thought Mick Dundee was real. Hogan wandered through crowded streets, knife on his belt, smiling at strangers. Tourists asked for directions, cab drivers yelled greetings. Even off-camera, he stayed in character, chatting and joking like the bushman himself. The line between actor and legend blurred completely, By the time filming wrapped, the myth of Dundee had already escaped into the real world, and the city that never sleeps had fallen for a man who didn't even know what an escalator was. The unforgettable finale, where strangers pass a message through a packed subway crowd, was born from Paul Hogan's own heartbreak. Years before, he'd been separated from someone he cared about in a New York station, helpless against the rush of people. That feeling, human connection swallowed by chaos, stayed with him. When it came time to end Crocodile Dundee, Hogan drew straight from memory. The result wasn't just cinematic, it was personal. That final scene hit audiences everywhere, not because it was grand, but because it was deeply human. When Crocodile Dundee reached overseas markets, some bootleg distributors tried a bold marketing trick. They advertised Paul Hogan as Clint Eastwood. Posters mimicked Dirty Harry artwork, swapping the gun for a knife. Audiences didn't question it. The squint, the hat, and the tough guy's stance were close enough. Hogan found the mix-up hilarious, joking, "If Clint wants to take credit, I'll let him. But he's not getting my hat." The fake branding actually boosted ticket sales and gave Crocodile Dundee unexpected fame in countries Hogan had never even visited. Before Crocodile Dundee conquered Hollywood, it needed one thing: money. That's when Michael Hutchence, lead singer of INXS, quietly stepped in. Through mutual friends, Hutchence helped fund early production costs. He never asked for credit or repayment, just believed in the project. When the movie became a phenomenon, Hutchence would grin whenever it played in hotels during his tours. It wasn't about profit, it was pride. The rock star had backed a story that carried Australia to the world stage. Originally, Paul Hogan planned for his wife, Noeline, to play Sue. They'd worked together for years, but when cameras rolled, something felt off. Their chemistry didn't spark on screen. The producers noticed it, and reluctantly, so did Hogan. Linda Kozlowski, a little-known stage actress from New York, was brought in as a replacement. From the first scene, the dynamic clicked. What started as a creative fix became destiny. Kozlowski not only transformed the film, she changed Hogan's life in ways no one on that dusty set could have imagined. As the cameras rolled, so did real emotions. Paul Hogan and Linda Kozlowski's on-screen spark turned into a genuine connection. They spent long nights under Outback stars, sharing jokes and stories far from the media's gaze. But Hogan was married, and their relationship soon became tabloid gold. The affair tore through headlines, ending one marriage and beginning another. Despite the scandal, their love endured for over 20 years. It was messy, human, and real, just like the movie that brought them together. After Crocodile Dundee exploded, Hogan became an overnight millionaire, but he didn't trust banks or Hollywood accountants. Instead, he carried thousands of dollars in cash during flights, stashing envelopes in his luggage and even socks. It wasn't arrogance, it was control. He feared losing what he built to taxes or bad deals. Years later, the government came after him with tax investigations that lasted decades. His defiance became part of his legend, a bushman turned star who never let the system tame him. Crocodile Dundee was made on a shoestring budget with no major stars, yet it became the second highest grossing film of 1986, just behind Top Gun. It didn't rely on CGI or explosions, only humor and heart. Word of mouth turned it from a local favorite into a global phenomenon. It proved audiences craved authenticity, not spectacle. The Outback conquered Hollywood with charm, wit, and one unforgettable grin. Still, one question remains. How did a film this simple become a timeless cultural symbol? When Paramount bought Crocodile Dundee for US release, they made over 60 dialogue changes, scrubbing Aussie slang they feared Americans wouldn't understand. Phrases like fair dinkum and you've got Buckleys vanished. The film still worked, but Aussie fans say the original had more bite. For years, fans debated which version was the real Dundee, the Hollywood one or the raw Australian cut. One thing's certain, even with half its jokes lost, Mick Dundee's legend still cut through louder than any translation ever could. Crocodile Dundee wasn't supposed to work. It broke every Hollywood rule. Yet it became one of the most beloved films ever made. A story about kindness, courage, and being yourself turned into a universal classic. Behind every laugh was real grit, and behind every scene, a little danger. Keep watching Golden Frame, where legends like this never fade, and the stories behind them are just getting started.